Imagine a stadium filled with anxious voices, racing hearts, and attentive gazes. There, in the center of the grand arena, the silence becomes more frightening than any shout. The towering arches of the Colosseum seem to watch the solemn scene, while the dust rising from the ground reveals the tension in the air. Amidst all this suffocating anticipation, the Apostle John, known as the beloved disciple, is dragged toward a cauldron of bubbling oil. The heat is almost unbearable, the smell of oil fills the air, and everyone awaits the worst. But at the moment John touches that scalding liquid, something extraordinary happens. In this video, we will reveal how John's unwavering faith was able to protect him in this seemingly hopeless situation. You will discover surprising details about this story and, most importantly, how that same faith can transform your life in the most difficult moments. If you want to know every detail of this impressive event and strengthen your own hope, go ahead and like and consider subscribing to the channel right now, so you don't miss any of the upcoming inspiring stories. Get ready, because this journey of faith can change the way you face your challenges. To understand what led John to face that extreme moment in such an extraordinary way, it is worth revisiting his origins. He grew up in Galilee, a region marked by fishing and trade along the shores of the Sea of Galilee. His father, Zebedee, was recognized for his success in the fishing trade, and John, alongside his brother James, learned early the arduous routine of manual labor. His mother, Salome, nurtured a deep faith and followed Jesus' teachings, passing these values to her children. This spiritual foundation, combined with the simple life they led, was fundamental in shaping John's heart and preparing him for the challenges he would face. Even living from fishing, John carried an enthusiasm that went beyond boats and nets. His heart yearned for something greater, and it was this desire that brought him closer to John the Baptist, the prophet who was announcing the coming of someone even more magnificent. There, for the first time, John heard about Jesus of Nazareth. Without hesitation, he and his brother James abandoned their work at sea to follow Christ's call, embarking on a journey that would change their lives forever. Even among Jesus' early followers, John stood out for his intense devotion. From an early age, he and his brother James were given the nickname Sons of Thunder by Jesus, reflecting the almost explosive enthusiasm they showed in defending Christ's message. But over the years and through direct companionship with the Master, John changed significantly. That impulsive energy transformed into love and compassion, characteristics that would mark the apostle for the rest of his life. John was not only distinguished by his loyalty to Jesus, but also by the intense way he absorbed every teaching. Instead of being just a spectator of miracles, he deeply experienced the message of faith and forgiveness. Thanks to this sensitivity, he was present at decisive moments of Christ's ministry. He witnessed divine power over life and death in the resurrection of Jairus' daughter, and closely observed Jesus' glory during the Transfiguration, a moment that revealed the Master's divine nature in an unparalleled way. However, it was at the Last Supper that the bond between John and Jesus became most evident. When John reclined his head on Christ's chest, he was not only showing affection, but a deep complicity marked by trust and genuine love. He knew that Jesus would face his most difficult moment and felt in a unique way that his own heart beat in sync with the Master's. Even when many disciples scattered during the crucifixion, John remained by Jesus' side, witnessing his suffering until the last moment. This demonstration of love and fidelity was recognized when Christ himself, amidst the pain, asked John to take care of his mother, Mary. For a Jew, this was a great honor, reinforcing the importance John held for Jesus. After Christ's resurrection and ascension, John remained steadfast in his mission. He preached the gospel, built the church, and kept alive the memories of Jesus' love, with whom he had lived so closely. Gradually, Christianity spread throughout the Roman Empire, challenging the worship of the emperor and local authorities. The apostles, including John, were at the forefront of this movement, boldly proclaiming the message of the resurrection. It did not take long for the new faith to conquer both the common people and part of the elite, arousing the concern of Rome, which saw the rapid expansion of Christianity as a threat to its power. In the time when Domitian ruled Rome, the worship of the emperor as if he were a god was an absolute requirement. Anyone who refused to venerate the ruler was accused of treason and could face relentless punishments. Already elderly but still full of courage, John continued to announce the gospel, attracting the fury of the authorities. He was then captured and accused of heresy for refusing to venerate the ruler and insisting that only Jesus is the true Lord. The sentence could not have been more cruel. John would be thrown into a boiling cauldron of oil in front of everyone to serve as an example of the fate reserved for those who defied the empire. On the day of the execution, the Colosseum filled with spectators, men, women, and even children, eager to witness another spectacle. The buzz grew as the apostle, with white hair, was dragged to the center of the arena. In front of him, a tank full of bubbling oil released an almost unbearable heat. While the guards, under tension, prepared for the execution, John remained serene. He fully trusted that his life was safe in God's hands, whatever happened. And the moment he was thrown into the scalding oil, a deep silence took over the place. Everyone expected to hear screams of agony or smell the burning flesh, but none of that happened. When they looked closely, they were astonished to see that the apostle remained intact, with no sign of pain or injury. That surprising scene left the crowd speechless, confronting them with something completely out of the ordinary, and for many, clearly supernatural. The crowd could hardly believe what they were witnessing. Mouths opened in astonishment, eyes widened, and people stood still before the impossible. Right in the center of that Colosseum, John, with white hair and a serene expression, remained inside the boiling cauldron as if he didn't even feel the heat. His eyes gazed at the sky, radiating a peace that transcended all human understanding. The sunlight, reflected on the arena's sand, seemed to highlight the apostle, enveloping him in a kind of divine halo. A murmur of surprise spread among the audience, growing until many knelt, convinced they were witnessing a direct intervention of God. What was meant to end John's faith turned into a living testimony of divine power. Amid the previously violence-thirsty atmosphere, exclamations of, "It can only be a sign from God," emerged, and astonishment gave way to reverence. Even the guards, who could barely react, did not hide their mixture of fear and admiration. Just like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, protected in King Nebuchadnezzar's furnace, John was preserved amidst the boiling oil. There was no human logic to explain what was happening before everyone. Where pain and death were expected, only God's grace remained, triumphing over the forces of nature. When the news reached Emperor Domitian, he did not hide his fear. He realized that continuing to persecute John could strengthen him even more, turning him into a martyr with uncontestable influence. Fearing the impact the apostle could have, even after such a public miracle, Domitian decided to banish him to the isolated island of Patmos. There, far from the crowds, John was supposedly silenced. However, in that solitary place, the apostle would have had one of the deepest experiences with God, receiving the visions that would give rise to the book of Revelation. Patmos was an arid and rocky island in the Aegean Sea, where political prisoners and people considered dangerous by the empire were sent. For John, however, this isolation became a period of intimate communion with God. Even far from the great cities and deprived of direct interaction with other Christian communities, he devoted himself to prayer and writing. It was there that, according to tradition, John received the revelations recorded in Revelation, further reinforcing his role as a prophetic voice for the church. The emperor's attitude, who intended to definitively silence the Christian message, ended up resulting in the production of one of the most enigmatic and inspiring works of the Scriptures. Amid visions about the future, divine judgments, and Christ's final victory over evil, John remained steadfast in the faith that sustained him in the boiling oil cauldron. When the spectacle ended in the Colosseum, no one left the place the same way they entered. Some left with hearts full of renewed faith. Others, still confused, wondered what they had just witnessed. But it was undeniable that God's power had manifested in a public and unquestionable manner. The Apostle John, whom everyone expected to see consumed by the boiling oil, remained alive and firm, and to the crowd, that had become an incontestable sign of divine presence. Stories about the miracle spread quickly. Meanwhile, John, already on Patmos, continued his mission to testify about Christ. Even under adverse conditions, his influence and example inspired Christians throughout the Roman Empire, reinforcing the idea that the God who acted on behalf of John continues to work in the lives of all who trust in him. Now think for a moment. If you were there that day witnessing John emerge unharmed, how would you have reacted? Would you have surrendered in the face of such evidence of God's power, or remained in doubt? The truth is that John's story echoes directly in our lives today. It is not limited to a spectacular miracle from centuries ago. On the contrary, it shows that faith can strengthen us amid the most difficult trials. John knew what was at stake, his own life. Still, he chose to remain faithful to God rather than renounce his faith. And you, how do you face the battles of daily life? Perhaps your oil cauldron is a health problem, a financial challenge, or a family crisis that seems endless. In such moments, John's story reminds us that God does not abandon us. He sustains us even when everything around us says there is no solution. Romans 8:28 teaches us that God works all things together for the good of those who love him. If you feel alone and without a way out, remember that the same God who rescued John continues to act today. And as Hebrews 13:5 declares, I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. Transformative faith is not passive. It is an active trust that, even without seeing the way, God is in control. John was not spared from suffering because he was more special than others. He was preserved because he wholeheartedly believed that his life was in the Lord's hands. That same faith is available to me and to you. Therefore, face your difficulties knowing that God remains powerful to protect you, sustain you, or shape you throughout the process, just as he did with John. Now I leave you with a challenge. Let this story inspire your daily life. Pray, place your trust in God, and wait on him, even when everything around you seems chaotic. If this message touched your heart, consider subscribing to the channel, leaving your like, and sharing this video with someone who needs to hear about this transformative power of faith. May God greatly bless you and accompany you, just as he was with John.